was a rigorous sexual experience.
Hi, everybody. It's Friday night, and it's just us girls tonight. So this is a 5-8 where we do 5 topics, 8 minutes each. That's our format on Friday nights, 5 p.m., 8 p.m., Western East Coast. And I have with me today, filling in for Greg Oliar, my dear friend, Nina Burleigh. How are you, Nina?
Oh, I'm delighted to be here. And that was a thing of beauty.
Yeah, we got some new things in there. That's Chunkled, our animator, and he just went to town.
Big Nancy Pelosi applause.
Yes.
And also real applause because it was fantastic.
Okay, I'm so glad you like it. So you were our first guest when I didn't even know we were going to do this show. This was really just you and Greg pulling me out of my doldrums going, come on, let's do it. And so you launched us. You launched us. And here you are.
I salute you. I don't know if I launched you, but I salute you. You're doing great. Thank you for being out there and fighting the good fight and trying to make sense of the chaos. It's super important. People need to pay attention.
Yeah, they do.
Pay attention.
Yeah, they do. Oh, okay. And so hold your book up for us. So I want everyone to see that right off the bat. Okay. So we're going to talk about this a little later on in the show and weave it into what we've all been experiencing in the latest news. The Trump women. It's an exceptional exception. Say it again.
Part of the deal.
Part of the deal.
Women, part of the deal.
Part of the deal. Yeah. And just summarize that for everybody if they haven't read it.
It's just a survey of the 6 women closest to the fat man throughout his life, starting with his grandma, mom, 2 immigrants, by the way, and then the 2 wives who are immigrants. Remember that, and then Marla, a little bit on Marla, and then of course, I don't leave out the future of the Trump brand, Ivanka.
Can't leave her out. No. She may have been president. We're not sure. Cassidy Hutchinson absolutely was president during the insurrection. So it seems to be a lot of women, and then we had this happen today. We had this little gem.
Oh, that is
okay.
That is awful.
I'm so
awful,
sorry.
Awful.
I'm so sorry, everybody. Yeah.
Look, let's just get this out there. I do not support that theory. There are Ivana, rest in peace.
Rest in peace.
Did have a imbibing problems and pills, and I think there were a lot of pictures of her falling down. Yeah. So sad, very, very sad to go that way, but
and just frail,
I'm not on board with the they did
conspiracy
to avoid Tish James's questions. Although
I mean, it is, the timing is off the charts, right? So, but in this era that we're in, the timing is always going to be off the charts, everybody. There's so much criminality around these people that either we're unpacking it or we're investigating it, or
witnessing it in real time,
hopefully indicting it. So this is decades and decades of criminality that got really pointed and concentrated once this man was given the greatest position of power in the world, which he willfully accepted and took an oath of office. And so, there's never going to be a good week for tragic news, and everyone's going to get conspiratorial. But I would like to remind everyone in that staircase, it was a natural occurrence that then got blamed on a conspiracy. So, I think, yeah, she probably just fell down the stairs, and it's tragic. And she's, we all get frail. We're all human. Everyone is a human being. It comes from them. All right. So should we get into our topics? We have our first topic. We set our timer. I don't know that we were doing this when you were on. I think you were. We did.
No, you need the timer.
We got to have the timer, and it's the foghorn. So the first one, I do want to talk about that J6 hearing, the last one we just had. I know everyone's just, it was interesting for me because it's all of what I've been sort of blasting out about from the second it happened, but also the characters involved and the setup to it since as early as September before in 2020. It was clear what they were going to do with the Red Mirage and all of that. And then even pulling back from there, what was so just jaw-dropping to witness as people who are aware of what was happening in the extremist channels with Trump world, who was all up in there. They were all in with the extremists from the get-go. So, there were people that ended up in Nancy Pelosi's office that personally attacked me, in terms of online. And so that was just like, here they all are. Here they are. Here are these information terrorists that have been using propaganda and the techniques of propaganda to radicalize and incite, right? And it was all really part of the operation of Trump world since 2015, 2016. And now it finally boiled over into an insurrection, and now the investigation into that insurrection has finally taken us to a moment to where the general public are seeing some of these characters. And I know everybody's aware of Alex Jones, but I don't know that people that aren't in that realm have sat and actually watched and listened to him, especially when he, things like what the speech he gave on January 5th, right? These people know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Flynn.
Remember that Roger Stone was was behind
Right.
the Brooks Brothers insurrection in Miami that stopped the counting, that
2000
gave W instead of Gore, that gave us the Iraq War, that gave us ISIS and 51 or 60 million refugees, and changed the face of the planet.
Yeah. Yes.
That's Roger.
That's Roger. This is Roger's playbook. Flynn knows it well, too. Flynn knows how to incite people and do things in other nations that are sort of in the dark arts of, infecting a population and with your outside ideas and moving them to the point to where they will do your will. He just ran that show here, right? And by helping to divide our nation and radicalizing the whole core. So this extremism that is an American extremism, it follows a playbook that is an old playbook that has been tried and true in other nations, that was adapted and put into play by the people who wrote it on behalf of Donald Trump. And that is what we're seeing. So I know that there's like little trickle down characters in this whole extremist ecosystem of information terror, like a Tim Pool, right? Who everybody got to see. All of a sudden, they're putting up the beanie cap man child, right? Out of Occupy, who supposedly came from Bernie and the far left. And now he's like reluctantly a Trump, but only because we aren't progressive enough. He has a whole shtick. But understand that he's in there. Right? He's in there. He's been in there from day one. And he had a real reaction to actually being called out. I want to talk with our guest about that later, because we do have a guest coming on, oh my God, how could you throw me in? I'm just a YouTuber kind of thing. And it's like, no, this is the ecosystem. You entered into the ecosystem. You can't play useful idiot card now. It doesn't work now because you're too good and too consistent and just too on the ball and in front of the ball with what you were doing to play dumb now. It doesn't work. We can't buy it. So I understand. I called this section Shock and Yawn because I understand that it was very shocking to everybody, but it didn't shock me. None of it shocked me. It just didn't. This is what we've been watching. And our friends like Sandy Bacon and the reporters and Luke O'Brien and Michael Hayden, everybody that's been in there covering these extremists for as long as they have, they were writing about this even before January 6th, saying, watch out, right? We have a great researcher here and follower here that watches the show and is a good friend to the show and to Greg and I, who was the first person to surface that executive order that Liz Cheney was talking about that came about in 2018 that clearly DNI Coates kind of shoved under Donald's nose to get him to sign something to kind of protect against foreign interference in future elections, saying we can kind of stop it because Obama was warned by all the heads of intelligence. Yes, Russia's in our processes, our democratic processes. They're hacking the DNC. They're doing all this. They're hacking the RNC. We never heard about any of that. What came of that? But, and so this was sort of an executive order to say the president has this ability to kind of, if he sees that, to put a stop and to sort of fix that. I'm messing up this executive order, but that's the gist of it. We're going to get into the gist of things. And so I think it must have been sold. This is just my guess. Sold to Donald as in 2018 of sign this and so if maybe it'll happen to you, and then you don't want that to happen to you, and so we want some authority or some ability to get in there and stop this foreign interference. So he signs it, and lo and behold, this is the executive order. 2 years later, 3 years later, that this guy had Sidney Powell and everybody and Patrick Byrne in that crazy meeting pull out of their hat and say, we have the authority to call in the National Guard. We have the authority to seize voting machines. Everything that for Team Normal, who was Team Complicit, was calling Crazy Town, was actually something that was part of this very intricate, we're going to back weave our way kind of back into any kind of legal justification for actually overthrowing the will of the people and having an insurrection. So all of that we knew ahead of time. And then we see that in the hearing and people are in shock. And, I don't know what to do with it when I'm grateful everyone is in shock and they're finally waking up to all this. But what's it going to take to get people to kind of come out of the bubble of what I guess was the resistance bubble and open your eyes and see the radicalization and actually understand it for what it is, and maybe learn about what then becomes the bottom line of what we actually have to fight for. Because if you go understand that threat, you don't understand the precipice that we're on as a democracy. You don't. I'm sorry. And it can't just be left up to Liz Cheney to educate everybody on this. Like, folks you got to get in there and sort of see what's actually happening in this country. That's my rant.
It's a damn good rant.
Okay, good.
I agree. I think people need to pay attention. That's why I started off with this: pay attention. You have to pay attention. And the problem is the hearings are not being broadcast on the most watched network in America. And, the idea that the Burleigh family can actually do business here when they're doing this kind of damage to our democratic system is appalling and astonishing.
It is.
But I think we have to move on to the next. Are we on?
We do. I think
I can go further into this in the next one because we want to talk about the Secret Service.
Yeah, let's keep talking about it because it's who's in this ecosystem.
Yes, who's in the ecosystem is among the actors are the guys with the guns. And that's why this segment is called Weed 'em Out, Joe, because one of the things we learned this week that is shocking, and I don't think it would even make you yawn, is that the Secret Service deleted its text. The Secret Service agents around the president on the 5th and 6th of January, 2021, deleted their texts amongst themselves after they were asked to turn them over, and then lied about why they deleted them and said they deleted them because there was a device replacement that required them to delete the text. Now, why is this a problem? Well, first of all, these are the people who protect the president, and this is like the Praetorian Guard. These are the people who would have carried out the coup and nearly did carry out the coup because Pence was afraid of them. Pence, vice president, who was supposed to go in front of the Senate and confirm the veracity and the validity of the election of Joe Biden, was hiding from the mob, a mob that we have just discussed was organized by, at the very top levels, by Roger Stone and others.
Cultivated and radicalized for years.
And using the cultivated and radicalized as their shock troops. But they had to get, Pence needed to be protected. And Pence did not let them drive him to Andrews Air Force Base. No. They were ready to drive him to Andrews Air Force Base. They lost 7 hours of those schedule details in their text erasings. In the process, they've smeared Cassidy Hutchinson. Yeah. Why do they smear Cassidy Hutchinson as psycho girl, as Trump called her? This typical, because that's what deadbeat dads and incels call women reflexively. Psycho That's girl. Right. Why did they have to smear her? And why did they have to get rid of the texts? Because Anthony Ornato, who's still a Secret Service agent, who was so beloved by Trump that Trump put him on his White House staff, lifted him out of the Secret Service and put him on his White House staff, happened to be driving Trump away from the Capitol as the insurrection was beginning. And according to Cassidy Hutchinson, Trump lunged at the driver and said, "You have to take me to the Capitol." Right. And Anthony Ornato has been denying that. He's denied other things that other people have said about what was going on that day, including a senior White House official named Keith Kellogg, who told, who has reported that during the Capitol riot, he rejected the agent's decision to move Vice President Trump to Andrews Air Force Base. Quote, "You can't do that, Tony. Leave him where he's at." This is the White House official. "He's got a job to do. I know you guys too well. You'll fly him to Alaska if you have a chance. Don't do it." And of course, these things are said. These things are texted. That's all erased. And Anthony Ornato and his cronies are denying and throwing aspersions on, especially the women who have stepped up and spoken, like Alyssa Farah, who also talked about Tony Ornato lying about the protests at Lafayette Square in 2020, where they famously marched out with tear gas. He lies about having said that Mark Meadows saying that the press didn't need to be notified that they were marching out there and about to tear gas everyone. So this is what they've done. They've disappeared the texts. And, let me just say, if Hillary's emails mattered so much that she couldn't be elected because she couldn't find them all, how can the right wing be okay with what's going on at the Department of Homeland Security and the Secret Service?
You're never going to get them on hypocrisy. They will never, ever, ever.
But I need to bring it up. The big red letter H. It's very important. So, these are people who, this is not, there are nests of these fascists at the top levels of the armed part of the United States government. So you have the U.S. Secret Service, fascist, fellow spirits, comrades in arms with the fascists. Over at the Pentagon that day, you had Michael Flynn's brother, who happens to be sitting at the very top of the Army, on a call when the Capitol Police are begging for backup while the whole country was watching what was going on and nothing was happening. He put the brakes on the response. "Oh no, we can't send the National Guard. It wouldn't look good to have the military out there." This is known. Again, he's denying. These people are denying. This goes all the way back to in 2016. If anybody who's paying attention and was paying attention, and I know your listeners pay attention to this stuff. Remember when James Comey reopened the email investigation a week before the election, basically handing the election to Trump. Why did he do that? Because FBI agents, pro-Trump FBI agents, a nest of them in the field office in Manhattan,
in New York,
who were
right?
buddies with New York, or sorry, who are buddies with Trump,
That's
and who
right.
some of them even take post FBI jobs to work with him.
To do his security and work for
Those
him.
guys were leaking so hard to Giuliani
Yeah.
that once they found that Anthony Weiner, some mention in Anthony Weiner's, what was it? I can't remember what it was. Some little tidbit of something that looked possibly suspicious. Comey was so afraid that they were going to leak that newly found tidbit that had absolutely nothing to do with anything, it turned out, that he reopened the investigation.
Yeah.
The inspector generals of the DOJ spent 3 years trying to find who these leakers were. And because Giuliani bragged about them. So he knew that there were leakers.
Yeah, he did. He kept
And
bragging about an
of
October
course-
surprise and
of course,
all of that.
because there have been, the train of chaos never stops. The flooding the zone with shit, as Bannon likes to put it, never stops. We all forget that this happened. And this inspector general thing went on for 3 years. And by the end of 21, or, sort of very recently, actually, the last bit of news on it is, Inspector General of the DOJ, they never really could find out what happened at the New York field office of the FBI. No, not anything. So you have these nests of fascist fellow travelers in the armed part of the federal government, right? So now we know, at least as far as the Secret Service goes, right now, if there's a civil war, we know which side they're on. We know because they deleted their texts. And oh, by the way, Joe Biden actually understood this. And in December of 2020,
in the transition,
elected, during the transition, but before the insurrection, he asked the Secret Service to give him the agents that had guarded him while he was vice president,
right?
Because he knew that the Secret Service is a nest of Trumpy fascists.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be
proven now, and that is shocking information.
It's shocking information
that they hid those texts.
We don't know outside of Ornato and that. So this is the corruption of Donald, right? He does corrupt law enforcement. He does corrupt security. He does do that. He's been doing that for decades. I'm telling you guys, he really is this corrosive, toxic force because this is organized crime. This is what they do. This is what they do. I'm literally reading even a worse scenario than Donald, if you can believe it. Didn't end up head of the country, of the free world, but bad enough, of these gangsters when they get into the legitimate halls of power within either our intelligence services or within politics and administrations. So they're so toxic. He's so toxic that I don't know that I would paint the brush for the whole Secret Service, but definitely, you're right. The nest is there. It's something to contend with. I believe Joe Biden fired those folks and asked for the original folks right after the Office of Bureau Management was or management, whatever, budget was not allowing him to have access to the information during the transition. They were holding all of that back from the president-elect. So as soon as he had access to information, which his security clearance should have given him and that he should have had and every other president-elect has always had, I think that was one of the first things he did. And then the other thing, I just wanted to put this on top of you, and then I want to get to our guest.
But he didn't fire Ornato. Ornato was working.
He hasn't cleaned out the way he needs to clean out.
He needs
to clean it all out. Anybody that Trump touched and appointed in any kind of position when it comes to law enforcement, I'm even for advocating get rid of Chris Wray. I'm sorry. I'm not saying he's horrible. I was the one going, oh my God, this guy used to be the private attorney for Gazprom. Come on. Look, it's just we can't trust it because Trump did it. And so, give a year off for everybody. Say, maybe we'll call you back in, but we got to take a pause here because this guy's so corrupted. We can't tell. And it's too dangerous to have you in there. I want to say the other thing that Secret Service did around the insurrection failed to do was that DNC bomb. Planted by that was where the vice president was going to be the next day, and they do a sweep and they missed it. So I don't know if it was someone waited until they had swept and then planted it because they were that clever, the bomber, or they just somehow missed a bomb.
But let's just make clear so that people understand this issue of moving Pence.
Yeah.
If they had moved Pence, if they had put him in the car and driven him away from the Capitol because they had organized this attack, which it was organized, and that's what this hearing is showing. It was organized at the top.
Yeah.
Because they had the mob there and he was in danger, they could legitimately have moved him out of the way. If they had moved him out of the way, he would not have certified the election on that day, which is what they wanted. And you would have a president dictator Trump right now. They were that close to a coup.
Yeah.
That close. And the Michael Flynn brother putting the brakes on moving the National Guard in to
and
help
Chris Miller, the appointment, Chris Miller,
not acting on that. And and Chris Miller at the DOD.
That's right.
They are all in on it. We're not making this up, folks. The hearing, and so the things that LB already knew about these people and that Michael Hayden already knew about these people is now known to these investigators in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
It is, if it's not known to the DOJ, there's something wrong with the system. We already know there are problems with the system. The question is whether these people in power, and we're going to get to the gist of this later, the get your shit together part of this, is that if we don't know if they can act on it. They know this, but we don't know if they can act on it.
What's it going to take for the will? Okay, so you teed up. Normally right now, Nina, we have, I want to get to our guest because I think we have him just for a short amount of time.
He's a genius.
He's a genius. Normally we put in and I have a little bit for people, a comedy bit at this point, which we call our ad, because we have no advertisers. I don't know. We're just making this. But I'm going to save that for later. We have another section to do it because I want to bring him on now. And here he is.
Hi.
Hi, Mike Hayden. How are you doing?
I'm better than when I checked in before, and I had just come back from my shower, from my run. Sorry. So I've taken a shower. Anyway, it's great to listen to Nina.
Hey, Mike, so good to see you again.
Yes, I know. And it's like I've listened to you speak socially, and it's the same thing. You know, you're always filled with great reporting and ideas. Happy to be here.
So we're happy to have you. So
I'm working on my reading.
Michael, are you the editor-in-chief? What is your title now at the
I'm a senior investigative reporter and spokesperson. I have done some editing though, which I don't get, which I'm not credited for in my title, but I am.
And you were in charge of the extremist file recently of what you brought forward. And I know that it was years and years, and there's so much great work you've done. Yeah. But you cover the extremists that are in this Trump land and that are part of that are at the top of the totem pole when it comes to pushing information out there that helps to radicalize the base, the very people we saw showing up for the insurrection. So it's not just going down into, okay, these are the Oath Keepers and these are the Proud Boys and this is what they do. And here's our 3%ers and here's our first AP and all these different offshoots, right? That are self-identifying as either white nationalists or militias or whatever they term themselves, that we can look at as domestic terrorists. You also really get in there and help profile, along with another buddy of ours, Luke O'Brien. It's not at SPLC, but you guys are the best at what you do at showing us, here are the thought leaders. These are the people that are out there radicalizing and setting the stage and pumping the horse shit down into very specific channels in a hate ecosystem that's all been orchestrated and architected to kind of work together between, even with like Fox News, now we're going to bring him over here. When Trump had Twitter, I'm going to retweet Jack Posobiec as much as possible. And then, oh, look, I'm over on Truth Social, retweeting him at key moments as well. So I just want to get your take, and I think our audience, and everyone's a huge fan of you in our audience. I could tell you right now. And I know that everyone's dying to just get your take, first of all, on the hearing, since it was so focused on the domestic terror element of the insurrection and these information terrorists. The reactions from people like Tim Pool, seeing his face up there with his beanie cap and going, oh my God, why am I involved? Why are you involving me? And sort of why he was involved and who, and then get to what do we call some of these people? Because I think I just put a okay label on them, but you're very good at really categorizing the hate ecosystem. And I
Yeah.
think we need some help because we've got some suit and ties in there. We've got Ginny Thomas. What do we call her? Like, who are
Oh,
those people, right? How do
yeah.
we think about them and how do we start referring to them? Because they're plugged into this whole thing.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's it. That's my big setup. Yay, Michael. I'm
Okay.
gonna
So,
I'm gonna put my timer on, but I won't make you stick to the time.
okay. Well, the people you're describing, loosely, like, we use words like influencers, right? Many of them are political operatives, right? They're hard right political operatives. If you want to use the word fascist, that's fine. We'd be using hard right authoritarian, which kind of sort of means the same thing because it's like a little bit difficult. I mean, people hear fascist sometimes and they think like black and white, footage and things like that. And so we're trying to help people understand these are, they're anti-democracy. They're, it's essentially, we don't know what they're going to do until they finish whatever this project is that they're working on. But it's like a loose coalition of people, and all these extremist groups, of course, have different, they're all different, and they need to be sort of activated by leaders and by messaging. They don't all work together, but they had a leader in Trump, in the run up to that, to the violence on January 6th. And then Posobiec, Poole, these guys kind of act as entertainers superficially, but really political operatives who get messaging across to people and are rewarded by those who fund them for doing it, right? So in Posobiec's case, the guy is never, he's presented himself as a journalist. We know he's not one. He worked for a month and a half for the Rebel News and then was fired plagiarizing Jason Kessler, a white nationalist. If you can call this plagiarism, or it's just it's all plagiarism in this world.
Yeah.
That they operated. And then he was, someone installed him at One America News Network. When I say someone installed him, maybe it was the people from One America News Network, but it was very sus, to use something my son says. And, it's sus. Like, what is he doing at One American News Network when, for example, QAnon started to become kind of bad for Trump in the sense of the way it looked, appearances wise. He ran a disinfo thing on One American News Network working with an extremist to claim that he had invented QAnon to try to discredit it. It was just an obvious op. Now we know, more about the origins of QAnon to know it's wrong, and things like this. And these guys were pushing all these figures, more minor figures like Raheem Kassam and those type of guys, to the major players. Which is everybody like Steve Bannon and Roger Stone and those figures.
Right.
They were all in lockstep pushing the same messaging, which was, again, highly suspicious and it resulted in something dangerous.
And it resulted in an insurrection.
Yeah.
And, I think the part of that is so tricky is who is paying them?
Right.
How are they so skilled at this? The coordination is clear. Who's coordinating it? There has to be a think tank or something that's saying, okay, now we say this and now we go here. And, we did get to see
Fox News.
Yeah, it could be. We did get to see that battle plan, right? That was going around with Enrique and Stuart Rhodes of like, this is us coming together. This is what we're going to do. That so we're sort of saying, read instructions carefully. We want you to go here, right? Where to go? You're all going to occupy these buildings. So some kind that battle plan for the day came from somebody. I can't imagine it was Enrique that came up with that. Like it's. The other part of it is there's some very, very intelligent actors at the top of this ecosystem, whether they're just the information terrorists that are spewing the hate to radicalize people. I wanted to remind everybody, Posobiec was one of the people behind Pizzagate. So they understand how to speak a certain messaging into specific channels to aggregated and sort of curated audiences and push for a stochastic terror event.
I like to look at what happened with Stop the Steal and the election disinfo through the lens of similar campaigns that preceded it, because it's almost a little bit easier because, there's so many moving parts in January 6th, and then we have this huge event to look at. Pizzagate is a perfect example of it. And, these things are not written like a script. It's not like a play. It's not like we're going to go out and carry out Hamlet with these exact lines. It's a little bit more like improv, where they have a few ideas that they plug on social media and whatever else, and they are confident that their audience is going to take those cues and run with it. And they're going to provide their own creative things, and they're going to sometimes pull from that. And Pizzagate's a perfect example of it, where they have this material that they get from essentially from Russia. They got this material. What are we going to do with it?
Yeah,
I've heard all kinds of things that I haven't been able to fully report out about channels where people were discussing things about what they're going to do about it. Right. So you have all these figures, these very familiar figures, who are again pushing the same campaign. They do the same thing over and over again.
Right.
I talk to other reporters who cover this beat, and we always start there's a network, and they activate it every time they do a campaign. And if you look at Pizzagate, right, it's just like, okay, what do we do with these emails? Okay, there's these, let's try this pizza stuff, right, related to this fake pedophilia thing going on.
Paint the target, right? Paint it.
The audience is responding to it.
Yeah.
And they have, all these different angles that they hit, right, with the spirit cooking Satan stuff, which can get, people who are, perhaps religious or afraid of Satan or whatever, deter them from voting, make them nervous to vote for Hillary Clinton, even if they don't like Trump, right? Like they sort of start hitting these things over and over again, activate this mob on social, and they don't care whether it's going to result in violence or not, as evidenced by repeatedly doing these things. If you look at some of the campaigns around Antifa, like, of course there's been there been anti-fascist activists who have done violence. Absolutely. I mean, like, in some cases, serious violence, right? But the way it has been trumped up is astonishing. It is like a long-standing 5-year disinfo campaign.
That's
to make it appear as if there is some kind of equivalent to the extremist mobs we saw storming the Capitol. And you don't. Here, the last thing I was going to say about this: you don't need to participate in that campaign and to contribute to it. You don't need to be in on whatever the first calls are that are made to push these type of things. You can do it and get rewarded by the audience that likes it once they get it going, right? So you don't have to be so, hey, let's push Stop the Steal. You can start pushing Stop the Steal and get rewarded by but you're immediately in the club when you start getting traction for pushing these things.
Yeah.
You look at somebody like Andy No, he really, I think, regarding that Antifa stuff, and which they really used on January 6th, by the way, the like 30% of, Republicans or whatever, maybe it's higher. I think it's like 60. I don't know, whatever it is. Think that
they were ready with that. They were ready with that ahead of time. They're like, Antifa's going to show up.
Pazovic was planting that specifically, and
exactly.
Nobody, and for some Twitter is just like, that's what we do here. But yeah, the
Twitter. Yeah. Oh, what did you think about that, Michael? What did you think about the anonymous Twitter employee going on the audio?
So, here's the thing. I'm very hard on Twitter, and I've written, I think it's worse than Facebook. I mean, I'm by the way, what worse, right? I mean, I don't know what is worse. It's like, I mean, we're dealing with legends of worse here.
Yeah.
But,
it's a more finely tuned weapon, but I don't know that it's a more finely curated audience. Like,
well, it's so effective.
There's a difference. It's an effective weapon, but the audience on Facebook has been so segmented and compartmentalized in a very masterful way.
Yeah, the ability to exploit the trending topics bar by far right actors is like, that is a unique tool for promoting disinfo. And
Yeah.
Joan Donovan talked about this to me when I reached out. If you remember on January 6th, Antifa started to trend. And that's all it really took. They were ready. They knew that people would be talking about what they were going to do.
That's
and
right.
They immediately started hitting him with that stuff. And then Posobiec said, one of the people at the took off his clothes and was wearing black clothes underneath. Like the stupidest, who who's there believing it?
Was it Jack? Was it Jack doing it himself? Maybe.
There's been a lot of, no, he was doing One American News Network coverage.
Oh, okay. He was
coverage at that time. He told Epoch Times the night before, "You're going to see something that you never saw before," which is the same stuff that Bannon was doing. They all knew. He's also a War Room regular. There was that.
Yeah.
War Room is something I really wish I listened to more War Room in the run up to that, because only now am I realizing how big that audience is and how that was really lived up to its name. But yeah, I mean, regarding Twitter, I'm very hard on them. I do believe that there are people at Twitter who mean very well, and are doing a job, and are just trying to make sense of what's happening there. And I think that there is pressure from moneyed interests and who knows what to keep things a certain way. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, because they have a million reasons to suspend. Never mind, Jack. I mean, Mike Cernovich is a male supremacist with 1 million followers.
I know.
Who has repeatedly pushed all kinds of lies on that thing. And he just, that's all he does. There's nothing that it's just right there for you. He's made comments appearing to advocate rape and things like that. And this is a no-brainer based upon your terms of service, right? It's not difficult. Posobiec has led kind of harassment charges against specific women, which I tried to get into, because it's so important to unify so many of these guys. I mean, Poole was listed as one of the top spreaders of information by a nonpartisan academic report. I mean, this is not tough, but yet they keep them on there. And I think about the last thing, I'm talking a lot.
No, God, well, we want to hear from you.
No, I mean, they've gotten big money from all kinds of places. There's Russian oligarchs and all kinds of things have been involved in Twitter's.
Yeah.
So,
You're talking about Usmanov? Yeah, it started with Usmanov. It was literally a KGB guy. He predates everything, FSB and everything. He's a hardcore Kremlin gangster.
So it's it's quite. They did get rid of Trump. But I think they were facing a tremendous amount of internal pressure at that time.
Okay.
But the infrastructure to do it again is still there. And I hope that more Twitter employees speak out. They may not speak to me. I mean, I've definitely had some very contentious emails with them, and I published some of them when I reported on it. I doubt they're listening to me now, but if they are, please don't, I'm nice and I will
talk to Mike.
Talk to Mike.
The point is, I hope that more people come forward and talk about what's going on.
I do too.
They're very siloed, apparently.
Can I ask you a question, Mike? Because this whole Twitter thing. I mean, my feeling is that the Twitter, the right has really moved to other platforms, and that whether Twitter does anything or not about Posobiec and Cernovich, you still got Gab and Parler and these other places where they've migrated, and Telegram or whatever it is, where they're just, still little, they're having their own conversations, and it's just as easy to get radicalized on those platforms as it is on Twitter. I mean, to me, Twitter is, we've lost touch with those people. I mean, I no longer get when I put out something about, let's say, guns. I used to get 4,000, replies and hate and, C-word emails and stuff. And that's not happening anymore on Twitter.
Yeah.
I don't know. There were bots. Bots, and they cleaned off the bots, but it just doesn't.
I don't think they've cleaned off a lot of bots, quite frankly. I think they're still using a lot of manipulation. They put in steps someplace to ensure that people, specifically people like you, do not get harassed. They've been good about that, because that's why the harassment has gone down, because they know that, like, without journalists, the thing is nothing, because that's people
So
go there
they
to
have
get their
some
news.
kind of invisible firewall that's keeping them from reaching.
Yeah, there is a bit of like that, and they're hiding replies.
I'm just
no. But you're a very good
Twitter works,
but it's a good example, right?
But she's a perfect example.
Yeah.
So that you exact type of person that would get targeted and who would be open to leaving the platform for somewhere else. If you're getting harassed all the time, that will not do that, right? So they got a little bit better about that and hiding replies and kind of keeping. Actually, now it's increasingly it's almost like they've created. There's like almost like a blue parlor. There's like a blue parlor on that website that you don't really interact with very much. What I would say is the difference is Twitter still does insane amounts of traffic.
Yeah.
But it is still the place where they need to get ideas to tastemakers and people who shape media.
Yes.
And that's why they will not relinquish that thing. And that's why they need Posobiec. That's why James O'Keefe, who was suspended from the platform and I think was probably botted to the gills on that thing, based upon he would post a video and it'd be like 15,000 retweets, and you'd be like, come on. I mean, like, there's just organically it doesn't work like that. You know, I've had tweets go viral. It takes like all, it gathers steam as people see it. It's like, come on, it's like 15,000 in like half an hour. It doesn't work that way. But they are still Project Veritas is still finding ways to get their videos on there. Either again, a lot of things go through Jack, but like Tim Pool will post the project. They find ways they need it there, because if the conversation doesn't happen there, the traffic goes down.
It dissipates. Right?
Telegram is where you go. Telegram is where you go when you're in like full war mode, and
once radicalized.
And what's scary about what's scary about Telegram is that you can come in, like, you kind of get pulled into Telegram because some of these same figures are there. You could go to be an Andy No person who hates leftists, and like, that's a real thing. That is a real animating hatred. You just hate leftists, and and you get into Andy No, and then you hook up with his Telegram, and it's not long before you're clicking through that stuff that you're coming into contact with like really, really hardcore stuff, because the type of people who do like accelerationist attacks and stuff like that, they also hate leftists, and they're they may not like Andy No, and they may he doesn't fit a lot of demographics that they would want, but they want his content, and that's where it gets dangerous. Is that kind of,
it's almost like a PR think tank out in the open.
You're on Twitter, and then you get kind of pulled into these other things. I think it's hard to say, but like, I don't see as much gab in the wild on extremism as I used to. It's like these things
kind of sad. They end up being sad, and they know that it's kind of embarrassing.
Interesting.
Telegram is
still the big megaphone for them.
Telegram, I think, is a different animal. That's where it gets like a lot more. That's a very because that is run by a Russian libertarian who is just, he's not going to do anything about this stuff, and he's made it very clear, and they know they can get away with a lot. So
all right, so on that, I actually have a couple of things. I want to come back to the insurrection, and then I want to go ahead. So just overall, what's your grade for how the Senate the Congressional Committee the investigative committee handled this particular part of the insurrection of January 6th? If you were to grade them A to F, what grade?
I'm going to go with. Can I go with like incomplete for now, because I do think that there's some stuff that they need to hit. Like,
okay, that's the other thing I was going to ask you. And what's missing? Do you think they're ever going to get to? You did that incredible work on Bausman quite a while ago now, right? Almost a year ago.
Well,
so
without saying too much about it, I have had some some folks with some folks who have more who have some weight to throw around in this world, reach out to me about Bousman.
Great.
So, I don't know what's happening with that, but it is as it remains. Here's what you need to know about Bousman. That reason why it still matters and it's still urgent is like this guy shows up in 2018, November 2018, like right around the midterms, opens up shop in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, big swing state, involves himself in all this extreme far right activism, goes to the insurrection, is inside the Capitol building, and then disappears to Moscow, back again where he came from, and leaves behind. And this is the thing. This is the reason why it's like, okay, well, maybe it was just, whatever. This is the thing where you can't ignore it. It's like, and leaves behind, from what I understand, roughly $1 million in property, which is like, yeah, it's gone. Yeah, I don't care. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I don't know many people who are, I don't know any billionaires actually personally, but I don't know many. I can't imagine many billionaires who would leave behind $1 million in property anywhere unaccounted for. I can't imagine any millionaires who do it, and we have no reason to believe he's either of those. Yeah. Well, he may be, but we have no reason to believe it. So this guy just abandoned a barn. He abandoned a home. It's wild. Like, what is he coming back for these things? I mean, so yeah.
Were they ever really his?
And he allegedly has an apartment or a property or something in Moscow. And it's like, okay, so he's, what's happening there? So it seems like a very difficult thing to piece together beyond what I've already reported. Then the other thing is we turned over myself, Megan Squire, and Hannah Gase of SPLC. We turned over a report on Nick Fuentes and his involvement in January 6th. They haven't referred to that yet, but I mean, I know that this is part of the water below the ice of their investigation. We'll see if they get into that. My colleague, Cassie Miller, turned over a big report on the Proud Boys.
Good.
I think some of these things will come back. One thing to flag, they mentioned Tim Pool a lot, and is interesting. Right before, was it right after the Stand Back and Stand By, or right before it? Pool, for some reason, decided to have Enrique Tarrio on his show for what was essentially like an advertisement, like for the Proud Boys, right before they started to do this stuff, and we saw their numbers grow as they hyped this stuff and they appeared at these events, and it was like an advertising campaign for this group. So crazy stuff. There's just too much. It's so sprawling. It's so difficult to kind of, what do we like? What do you even talk about? You have to talk about very specific things without, because it's bigger than you can get around in a conversation like this.
It's really hard, but I think we've got some great takeaways from this conversation. First is, we're going to call the operatives that wear the suit and tie or have the pearls that they're clutching because they have a professional job or are married to somebody in a sort of an elite sector. We're going to call those people political operatives. That's probably the best way. They may even be political operatives specifically embracing a Christo-fascist or hard right authoritarian takeover of the government.
One thing about this?
Yeah.
The reason why it's like you have to think of them in terms of political operatives and not necessarily like activists and volunteers, because there is no policy. What is the policy of the Trump worldview? What policies are you even advocating? I guess like reduced immigration, whatever. This is essentially power.
Well, taking
That's
over our bodies, taking over women's bodies.
I mean, it's essentially
fascist. They're fascist. It's a fascist playbook, is what it is, which is why.
What is the goal that some of these figures that we're talking about are working towards?
Oh, can I just jump in here? I honestly, because we're down to 3 minutes now, 2 minutes. Sure. Honestly, you have so much knowledge and so much information, Mike. And I'm glad that you're sharing it with the committee. But what we were talking about earlier, this, infiltration of the Secret Service, the infiltration of the Pentagon, the infiltration of the FBI by these fascists, They absolutely have a goal in mind. We know that just this week, the level of lunacy of what they're doing with women in terms of, the 10-year-old and the now, the Texas actually alleged fraudster attorney general has suing the federal government over emergency care for women. I mean, we know what they're doing. They're literally using the Gideon playbook, the fictional playbook of the Gideon the fictional Gideon of Margaret Atwood. What's the urgency here? The red flashing lights. The reason that we have what is it? Our little GYST. It's get your shit together, Democrats, because if you can't craft a message off of this,
that's right.
At this time, there is a red light flashing. They have 3 or 4 months left maximum to do something about this. And I truly believe that people like Flynn, the brother Flynn, who was putting the brakes on the whole
Charles Flynn. Mm-hmm.
Flynn and the Secret Service guys who were ready to drive Pence off to Andrews Air Force Base so that the coup could occur. Those people are the same type of people that were driving helicopters off of the coast of Argentina and pushing leftists into the water.
Yes.
That is what that is their goal. They want to eradicate, they want a theocratic rule, and they want to eradicate people like you and me and LB.
They're rounding us up.
I want to just,
no
I
doubt.
just want to quickly interject so you
You're in
understand
the
what I meant.
helicopter.
So I'm not, so you can understand what I meant, which is not to dismiss, for instance, these goals that have been achieved, for instance, the horrors of the Supreme Court that we've seen recently.
Yeah.
What I mean to say is, I distinguish them as political operatives, because what is the one, you don't get the sense that any of the figures that are kind of online and driving these things are fighting for necessarily these goals, one or the other. These are like gifts to evangelical Christians. What I'm talking about, like the Pazovic, Cernovich, these type of people.
They want white male control over everything.
Well, that definitely.
That's what they want. It's all that they want. They don't want LB having a show. They don't want you investigating them. They don't want me writing about abortion, or they don't want any of that. They don't want a free press.
Yes.
We know what they want.
They want a yacht.
They're China.
They want a yacht too. These are very much fucketeers, is what I call them, of all for none and none for all. These folks also believe that
they can be Elon Musk.
They believe that they actually, their proximity to power that they will help install secures them to have an elevated, elite, rarefied air life ahead of them. So I never want to take out or they wouldn't be so into being famous and having an audience and being celebrities. Yes, it serves the purpose of whoever's paying them, of they're supposed to go and gain an audience. But on the other side of it, these people really love it. Like they want to be the next Elon Musk without, and I don't know where that guy gets any of his technology. I don't believe that he comes up with any of it. But I think it's just a fraud.
People stand in their way.
Right. We're in the way.
They look at it.
They talk about the friend-enemy distinction in fascist propaganda, that there's like this, whatever. And there's to create a small minority rule in which they are on the right side of that power thing and everybody else is not. What I will say, a positive note, and then I'll let you continue with your show.
Yes.
Positive note is, there are cultural battles that we have won in this country, and people remember a lot of things. And let's say they get what they want, and they really, undo democracy and all these things. They're going to have a very difficult time governing in this country. Because I mean,
they're not very well thought out. They're not thinking.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, Luke talks about this a lot. It's like, at the moment, you're in a stage where only a certain number of informed people really are talking about this, and most people are just trying to work and get through their day and keep their families going and all this stuff. Yeah. This can be escalated further, and people are going to start to notice that their lives have changed. And this is a diverse country, and the cities that they despise so much, New York and Los Angeles and Chicago and San Francisco, and all these cities are very important to the economy of this country. And
right.
it's going to be we will see what happens. But I would say that, if you want to hold on to something positive, and I frequently need to these days, it's that I have a lot of faith in a lot of people in this country that are not
Thank you,
always getting their
Michael.
voice heard. So on that note,
Thanks for saying that, Michael. I know you got to
yes,
go.
I miss Nina. I miss seeing you in the office at Newsweek.
I know, me too. I do miss those days.
Yes.
As crazy as they were.
Yes.
All
Thanks for
right.
having
So,
me,
Michael,
Steph.
tell everybody where they can find you before you
Oh,
go.
I'm on Twitter at Michael E. Hayden. You can find me there and send me a message.
Follow him.
And you can you can also send me a message on Signal or whatever too, most of the time.
Okay.
All right.
He's the greatest. Thanks,
All right, take it
Michael.
easy.
Appreciate all your work.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Oh. All right. I didn't mean to do that. I'm new at the controls. Oh, my goodness. I didn't mean to give it. Okay, I'm doing it. I am trying to this. Yeah, I've got it now. I figured it out. All right. So I feel like we covered a lot of our next section.
I think we did.
Yeah. So the next section is Trojan. Well, it's not horse, but if you just reverse the S and the E and you put a W in front of it. I do want you to talk about the women though, Nina,
Sure.
because this is your area. This is why, I love talking to you because you always have something to say.
Everybody read this book. I'll give you, you can go out and buy it. Trump's Women, Part of the Deal.
Yeah.
And in it, I studied. I have long made a study of the conservative woman in America. All going back to Palin, let's say, and her followers, and these women who are obviously beneficiaries of feminism, but hate it or profess to hate it. And what's their deal? Like, what are they getting out of this? Why is it that when you can wear comfortable shoes, you still are going to wear the fuck me shoes that are really hard to walk in? I think they, some do look great, and I certainly wear my share of high heels, but
yeah,
wear them all the time, like Melania, because her man likes the way they look on her, totally hobbled. And I bring up the shoe because what I've come to understand about these conservative women is that they need to look hobbled and weak in order to get power, whatever power they can get from these men, because these men are so tender at heart and so frightened that they can't, and their masculinity is so fragile that they need their women to be to appear to be malleable and pliant, and so they make a practice of that. And in the insurrection, if we want to just skip forward from that concept, they played a very important role that I have written about, that has been covered on occasion, that is being talked about a little bit at the hearing. And that role was to be the Trojan horse with the park police, setting up this insurrection grounds for the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. Yeah. And what they did was they sent forth Women for Trump and Women for America First. Yeah. And these, a couple of them were seasoned Washington hands who maybe had worked for, Lindsey Graham, nice Southern girls with sweater and pearl sets. And they were the ones who went over to the park police and filled out the forms and got the park permit. Did they arrange the buses? They arranged the buses. Of course, Ginny Thomas is one of these examples.
Yeah.
And of course, one of the big fundraisers who put the thing together was Julie Jenkins Fancelli, who's the owner of the Publix grocery store chain.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Publix lady. Yeah.
Who coughed up the majority of the $500,000 for the insurrection rally, $300,000. Her family is among the richest in Florida.
Yeah.
So the
Imagine that,
women,
a grocer from Florida.
yeah, a grocer from
Okay.
Florida who turned it into the Publix grocery store chain. And if you've ever been to Florida and seen it, so
Yeah.
these seasoned Republican rainmakers and canny DC insiders like
Yeah.
Carolyn Wren, who worked with Ollie Alexander to coordinate planning. Again, wearing the Chanel suit in the pearls. Doesn't look like an oath keeper. Doesn't look like a proud boy. But these were the Trojan horse of the insurrection.
Yeah, they were.
And at the moment, what you're seeing at the hearings is that some of these Trumpy women, Mary Cheney, let's say, who never was a Trumpy but conservative, Cassidy Hutchinson, Olivia Troy, Alyssa Farrow, these women who worked inside the Trump White House, they're the ones who are putting their heads above the what is the word? They're sticking their head over the castle wall and saying, here's what actually was happening. The men, the Mark Meadows and company, and the Bannons and the Peter Navarro's, they're in hiding. They're huddled.
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't care if any of them, and I'm sure that some of them recognize the immorality of it. I'm sure that some of them were shocked by it. I don't know which ones, but I'm sure that inside some of them were like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. We are engaging in a coup. I'm sure that some of them witnessed it and were appalled. They are not sticking their heads out.
No, they are not.
They're not taking the fire. And look what they do to Cassidy Hutchinson. Sorry, she worked at the Trump White House. I don't feel sorry for her, but psycho girl. And again, okay, you know what? If you worked for Donald Trump and you were a female and you didn't expect that he was going to call you dog face or something before you were done, then I don't feel sorry for you at all. At all. But, thank you for coming to the House of Representatives and telling the people of America what you stood by and watched on that day. And more of them should be coming out.
Yeah.
So, that's really it on the women, I think. I mean, what else can we say about them? We know, these are people who are, I wouldn't say that they're self-hating females. I mean, I think that we're, women can have all kinds of political views, and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't agree with them all, but it was the willingness to engage in this subterfuge and letting themselves be used and appear pliant in front of these, and appear to be innocuous and harmless, and all the things that they practice when they're dealing with their toxically masculine, fragile men.
Right.
That's what they used, and that's the tool that they used on that day to open the door to people who literally, again, I'm going to go back to this, who literally would, if they took over this country, would take LB and me and Michael Hayden and all sorts of other people and activists and either put us in jail, or worse, you wouldn't see us anymore, or they would take those helicopters and dump us into the sea. They are exactly like those people down in South America. Steve Bannon would fit right in down there in 1980. That's who they are. And so these women, again, were, they're compadres, they're fellow travelers. And, thank you, Cassidy and company, for getting up and speaking of this. But I think we really need to do is get to the next part of this conversation, because
we do. Okay. So I want to say this first before you do. I got to play something from Greg, but it is a study in the difference of power, of the use of power, and what we do with power in the gender divide, right? So
absolutely.
So I think it's going to be very interesting to watch more. I think it's pretty clear on the sort of on the conservative side, from the gamut, from people who just call themselves moderates, but they're not, all the way to what Michael was just discussing. There are roles that women play there so that they can either have a proximity to power so that they can consume it themselves, like Elise Stefanik. There's a very specific track for someone like that. So we've got that study over there. I'm interested in more options on the table for women as we are able to come into our own with our own in the power structures with our own role and our own authority, what we do with that. So we're seeing what's happening over here. I'm not thrilled about it. I'm not even thrilled about yes, thank you, Cassidy Hutchison. We even wrote a little song for her. And you were there the whole way, and you were compelled to do this 18 months after the fact, right? By a subpoena. So it's not quite there for me either. Okay.
Good point.
Yeah. So
and she didn't have the money, and she didn't have the Peter Navarro GoFundMe.
Yeah, she did.
Get herself $1 million lawyer.
She's handling herself in a very interesting way, and so and I'm interested also. I want to just keep my eyes out of what are the other options that are showing up on the table when it comes to women and power. I think there's going to be
that crowd. You mean among that crowd, or
no, in general. Just
I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi. I mean, Nancy Pelosi's wielding power in a pretty effective way. I mean, for an 80-something, she's an octogenarian.
Yeah, she's an octogenarian. She's been around a long time.
She's wielding power within the structure.
Okay. But we're going to get to gist. I mean, it's because those are the other options, and I don't see anybody getting their shit together, right? So let me play this with Greg, who is traveling, and so he couldn't be there, but he did record this for everyone on the show. I think we end up staying on screen while I play this. Give me a second, folks. Let me figure this out. Here we go.
The Comet ping pong basement tapes, the list of Trump's CI escapes, the treasure trove of sicko kitty porn. The entire pedo archive, Rudy found in Kharkiv, and every email sent by David Korn. Satoshi Nakamoto, there's his real name and a photo, and a crypto wallet passcode to his stash. There's footage of Benghazi, Lady Lindsay's buck-a-bopsy, and items found in Jeffrey Epstein's trash. There's HRC and AOC and the squad's blacked out. More gross shit than the men's room of the local truck stop. And when the truth is all revealed, it'll hit you like a mic drop. It's Hunter Biden's laptop. It's Hunter Biden's laptop.
Yay, Greg! All right. Well, and
he's recording that in Berlin.
You're not supposed to say where he is. No, he recorded that. He recorded that a little while ago. He recorded that for us.
Lovely.
Okay. All right. So even on that, right? A whole list of things that are everything we've talked about on this show. Everything, all of this, we haven't even gotten to what happened to that poor 10-year-old child, right? If there is not enough content here for the Democrats to get their shit together around the messaging and really take it harder than we've ever done before. I say I was an independent before any of this shit. So, but I'm in there with you guys. Like, I'm helping, I'm trying. This is the messaging. Can you please do it? And we've got the octogenarians around talking about, well, I did this back in the day, and talking about themselves instead of advancing the messaging that we need so that we can win these critical next two elections where everything is fucking on the line. Everything, more so than even 2020. That feels like a cakewalk compared to what this radicalized fascist party is going to do if they take control of the House of Representatives and then the Senate. They get control. You think that they're not going to make all of these red state laws on banning abortion in every case scenario, a federal law, they're going to go for it. And they'll keep it alive and going until Joe's out of there and they can get DeSantis in there to, put his stamp on it and make it into law. And then good luck reversing that law. So come on. When are they going? So this is what we have, a hashtag gist. I came up with this. I don't know if it exists outside of coming up with it, but get your shit together. This is the gist of, can you get the gist of what we're saying here? Can you just fucking get a messaging together? This is why Republicans win in these elections, especially in these midterms, is because they know how to all be on the same page. Even their radical, extremist information terrorists out for themselves, fucketeering, they just want a yacht. Even those selfish fucks get the messaging right. They all coordinate the messaging so they can walk in lockstep.
That's right.
This is not hard to do.
Right.
Why can't they do it? And with such clear messaging that is so winnable. Oh my God, this is a horror show of freaks and grifters and extremists and radicals, real radical, Christo fascist. No one wants this. It's like what Michael was saying. What is their platform? It's like, no, they don't even know. They're just really just craven Caligula. If you can't create a messaging that is anti-Caligula, I don't know what to say. So this is where I start to lose my mind. I feel like I'm losing my goddamn mind. I even have it down to like the Justice Department not having any message whatsoever. And certainly this flipto place that everybody's in.
The Justice Department would not have the message. I mean,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying for politics.
Their message.
I'm saying they're not even
in front of a court of law and put those people on trial. It's not the Justice Department's job. It is all these highly paid strategists in the Democratic Party ecosystem. And you know who some of them are, and you know some of them won't know who they are, who are running polls and focus groups and taking a lot of money. The Democrats are making, they're not as affiliated with oligarchs as the Republicans, but they certainly have their oligarchs, and they certainly have people who feed them money. The problem is that you're right. It's not, they're not in lockstep. It's a big tent, but so is the Republican Party. As you've just pointed out, they've welcomed their extremists. They have lunatics. They have qualified people who should be in the insane asylum who are speaking out for them. Alcoholic Rudy, this is all part of the big tent. In the Democrats, here's what's going on. The Democrats are now the party of the educated, college-educated people. So they're more likely to be putting up candidates who speak to them, the college-educated Americans respond to, and therefore they have to respond to this lunacy within certain restrictions. And they have to play by the rules, or they think they have to play by the rules. But all of that said, if they can't take the stuff that's going on right now, that just in this last week that we've learned or watched happen, if they can't take that and transform it into a message that activates people to vote in November, then they should really not be in the business of politics.
They have to get out. Yeah. And it's not even a big tent.
The party should go away.
Let me say this.
We'll say one last thing, because I wanted to say this in the beginning and we didn't have time because I wanted to talk about the Secret Service. The Fox News, the Fox Entertainment Company is a cancer. Roger Ailes was the tumor. It's a cancer on this nation that is infecting this generation going forward. I don't know how many generations. There are like 80 million people watch it all. I don't know what the number is, but it is the most watched network, right? It's the most watched TV in the country. That the Murdochs own a company in which they are letting them not air the most consequential, important hearings in possibly American history, certainly since Watergate, that they're not letting their 80 million viewers even know that this is going on.
Right.
It's an abomination.
How
And
are they
the
maintaining their
Federal Trade
license?
Commission, the FCC should,
That's right.
I know we no longer have the fairness doctrine, but is there not even some kind of baseline of where you have to say, if you're going to use the word news in your title, that you have to be providing some kind of factual information that keeps the population educated and informed? If you're
Yes.
calling yourself, if you're an entertainment company, which is actually why I've looked this up, that's what they are.
Right.
They're registered as an entertainment company. So, but they're calling themselves news. And so you have, enormous numbers of people. And as you say, they're all messaging in lockstep. So what is the answer on the other side? You don't have Fox News, but you have access to online messaging. You could be using the same kind of tricks and tools that Cernovich and Posobiec are using. They're dirty and down and dirty and ugly, but you could be doing that. You could be doing a lot of things with the media that you're not doing. And you could simply be creating message after message about they're criminalizing a 10-year-old child who was a rape victim, and the whole state of Texas legal apparatus is spending money to fight the federal government on whether women's lives can be saved or not by a medical procedure. They don't even have any right to tell us what medical procedures, what they wouldn't get involved in a medical procedure if it was a male reproductive organ, but they have. Right, so
let me thread all these things real quick. Okay. So I do want to thread through this because it begins with party messaging, right? It begins with political messaging. That needs to be with this party, right? In the two-party system with the Democrats. It's a mess. It's a morass. It always has been. And they are continuing to be in denial and defensive about it. So rather than listening and gaining and learning. And a key example of how that then flows all the way over into institutions, right? Like the Justice Department at the very end of it is something. Here's a perfect example. The semantic gun safety as opposed to gun control. Since Sandy Hook, the parents and everyone around that have been trying to get the party that is for gun safety and gun control to stop using the word control and start using the word safety. That was 10 years ago, right? Or less than, but that's how long it's taken to finally have the elected Democrats, the ones that are sitting on these committees making the decisions on legislation, the elected Democrats in our institutions, the ones that do things like, as president, pick the attorney general, right, in the Justice Department. It's taken them this long to get that concept and all start saying gun safety. And you started to see finally a wave after Uvalde. It took to Uvalde for them to go, okay, gun safety, gun safety. I start talking about what I think it should be, and I'll go ahead and put my ego aside and listen to the people who know how to do effective semantics and messaging, and we'll all do the same thing because we're tired of seeing 10-year-olds having their heads blown off of them in their own schools. So that's what it took all that long for this one party, and then their elected officials who become the legislators, who then become the office and administration holders, who then pick the attorney generals. That's what it took all the way for everybody to start just using one term, gun safety. So when I say the messaging of the Justice Department, I'm talking about this shit too. I'm talking about the fact that you can't separate the institutions from the politicians that set the laws that inform and run them and set the budgets that have them going forward. This is messaging that, yes, begins in politics, and it begins with these very expensive people that everybody pays and no one fucking listens to in this one party. And it goes all the way to the end point after years and years and years of being a corrupted, corrosive force for the bad guys. It's being weaponized against the good guys that they can't get their shit together. They can't get their shit together. The institutions, everybody from the DNC all the way to the institutions, right? All the whole fucking thing. That is how it goes. I don't want to hear legal Twitter, justice Twitter going, blah, 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 you don't understand the Justice Department. They're separate. They're not. They're not separate and apart from everything. The Attorney General was picked by Joe Biden. And he sets the fucking agenda. Not Joe Biden, the Attorney General, but he's a political pick. He's a pick out of the world of politics. He is, even though he came from a judge. We all know the only reason Joe Biden picked Merrick Garland is because it felt like he was putting something right back in the world from the Obama era that was robbed of Obama. And it turns out this guy is looking like the dud of duds. Right? I'm not saying he's a bad guy. It's just, this is the reality. You can't, this precious, specious world of treating everything as if it's not part of a whole, which is our government, our ability as a democracy of people to choose who governs us and to make sure we choose our lawmakers and then help to put the people in there that actually then enforce the fucking laws.
That hangs in the balance right now.
Yes, it does.
Hangs in the balance. And I don't fault so much. I mean, yes, Merrick Garland probably should be trying to make some kind of a case against some of these people, and maybe they will.
Maybe they will.
Justice moves very slowly. I don't blame, I'm not inside that building. I don't know what decisions they're making or not making. If they're making these decisions based on politics, I would imagine that their timorousness comes out of this feeling that they still have this idea that they can only get that narrow piece of the middle that they need to win these votes, these votes of the middle, the independents, if they just start to look like they're going after these guys in a kind of a third world banana republic way. But we are stuck with people who ran the country like they were from the third world banana republic, and they have to be treated that way. He came out of the gate acting like a tin pot dictator, screaming for Hillary to get locked up right away. Utter projection. That's their method.
That's right.
That's what they would do to their opponents. And so they immediately, so I get
but
that.
I'm talking about choosing, communicating. The words that are chosen to communicate.
The Justice Department can't communicate like that. But I hear what you're saying. When
yes,
I say
they
that,
can, Nina, they can't.
No,
hang on.
I'm
going to push back. I'm not talking about.
They're guilty.
Hang on. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about them making political communications at all. Let's not collapse that. I'm talking about speaking to the people, and they have in the past over and over again. There's a whole press podium there for the Justice Department, for the Attorney General. Bill Barr couldn't stop fucking talking to us. There's other fucking examples throughout the history of AGs. This has been so quiet, and it doesn't have to be in the sense of we need to see a presence. This was the insurrection was the greatest attack on our body politic. And it was a violent attack and our democratic processes in the history of this nation. Right? That's how fucking significant it is. And we haven't had a single press conference from the head of the FBI. In 18 months, we haven't even had the head of the FBI come out and talk to the people about these are the indictments we have done. We're all just sorting through it all and trying to keep track of all these different characters and names because there's nothing coming at us from any sense of leadership whatsoever saying, we got this. This is where we're at. This is what we're doing. This is what we cannot say. This is when we do have something to say, we will say it. This is our focus. They can talk about that. They always have. So I'm just talking about that's messaging in that institution that isn't happening. And then we have messaging in our politics on the Dem side that is just a mess. And it's barely are they able to get their shit together and get on the same page. So I'm really, truly talking about not collapsing those two things at all. I'm saying the ability for our leaders to communicate and the importance of communication seems to have completely gone by the wayside when it comes to what the actual strategies and goals are for that communication. We have, and in our press, same goddamn thing. Everyone's just carrying the talking points coming out of the people who actually do have their shit together. And it happens to be the evil motherfuckers that have their shit together. So you watch a news program and all you're going to hear is Republican talking points. That's what I mean. That institution, the institution of the fourth estate.
And that's always been, it's been that way on TV.
It doesn't have to be. The Dems can get it together. The
They
Dems
have,
can get it together.
it goes back to the strategies. It goes back to the brains behind these operations, the people who are thinking about the communications. And I just think that they're driving their electric cars around Washington and completely disconnected from
The base even.
the sense of urgency that everyone else seems to feel.
Yeah.
And they have a sense of helplessness for some reason. I really do feel that these are, the people who work for the party and who work on these communications, for some reason, they do not have a sense that they're going to make any difference. And, come on, get out, get your shit together, together.
Look what happens when
you have people like Schumer,
I can't.
The Democratic Party's problem is that they run on the seniority system where, it's my turn, it's that person's turn, and they have nobody in the bench, and they've got all of these, everybody's over 70 who's got any power in the system, and they haven't nurtured these younger people to come up and take power, and they aren't equipped to handle this new world that they're facing.
They're not.
They're not equipped, and they need to be equipped, and they need to get all hands on deck. And I mean, they have people willing to come in from all sides to help them. And it's just not, it's not, I don't see it happening, but I think if they can't craft a message of what's happening right now and motivate young women, people who care about women to come out, that is a gift that the Supreme Court has handed to the Democrats. And I think that it will be effective. Whether or not the DOJ comes out and indicts these people who are clearly guilty of coming within one, iota of time of actually executing a coup and turning this country into a dictatorship. Okay. I think that even if we don't stop that, there is still a chance that they can, because of this insanity on the, this unleashed, the sense of these people just unleashed and using this moment of the Supreme Court's power that's been handed to them to really enact, their wildest dreams about controlling women and putting that into place.
Yeah.
And criminalizing doctors and throwing doctors in jail and so on. If they can't turn that into a winning election strategy in November, then they really should just disband the party and start.
It won't matter. You know what I mean? Like
it won't matter.
It'll be disbanded for them. So I think here's the message of GIST, #GIST, and it can be used. Use it against Dems. Use it when it comes to the Justice Department. Use it when it comes to activists that are mixing the message up or doing things or being idiots with their semantics. Okay, get your shit together. Rise to the challenge, everybody. Rise to the challenge, from the people to the politicians to the lawmakers to the law enforcers. Rise to the challenge. This is the moment. Rally at all of your resources. Come together, figure it out, get your messaging down. You all are sucking at your messaging. Find your spines, find your will, do it. Do the big shit you need to do. This is the moment. You've been prepping your whole life for the moment where you get into the big show, on the big arena, on the big stage. You are at Madison Square Garden, about ready to step into the boxing ring, and you have every single tool you need for the heavyweight championship of the world, and you're sitting there and your opponent is an incel. Knock him out. It's not hard. Knock them out. These are radical extremists, pearl clutching, stiletto wearing, crazy freak show incels, right? That, drown people in acid baths if you're Steve Bannon. It's enough. It's enough with this. Stand up for democracy, believe in democracy, take the big swings and knock people out. This is where we need to be. Don't be afraid of your power. Use your power. Stop being afraid of your power, Chuck Schumer. Use the power, Chuck Schumer. Stop being afraid of it. Okay? Get it together.
Yes.
All right, that's our show. We went way long. This is the longest show ever, but that's because we're friends.
I know my lights have been getting darker and darker. I was relying on sunlight, and now I don't have my. Sorry, I don't have my office is not set up. It's a library. It's set up for reading and writing, and it's not set. It's not a TV studio. So I've faded.
All right, we're gonna get together, Nina. You're gonna be on these shows now. We need your voice.
Invite me back, and I'll have a whole studio set up.
Set it up. It's time.
I don't know if I can sing a song like Greg, but I can recite a poem. I'll recite a poem for you.
That's the best. I would love a poem.
I'll work on it.
Work on a poem.
Okay.
All right, Nina Burleigh, you were the greatest.
Thank you.
Thanks for pinch hitting and saving my ass. I love it.
Super fun. Always good to see you, babe.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Ciao.